We're live.
We're live, sir.
Live recording.
Live-ish. Heavy on the ish.
Live-ish, exactly. So today we have Christian Porter from Porter Pest Control. Thank you for coming today.
Of course, anytime.
Yeah, so we're looking forward to the chat. I'm sure I'm really curious to hear some of the interesting parts of the pest control industry.
Well, it's not a dull moment, I can tell you that. That's for sure. You're never bored, as you would say.
No, and I can imagine that no 2 days are alike.
No.
Yeah.
No, that's one of the cool key benefits is, for some people, no offense to this beautiful office, but some people don't like the office environment. So if you don't like, one of them, 100%. These glass walls will be talking to me in about 30 minutes. So I want outside, dealing with people, and that's what you get.
And stuff that Google can't fix is what we were talking the inside joke before. Yeah,
exactly. I mean, for a lot of the things, like there's good tips online, of course, with everything, but like everything else online, there's also less good.
Yeah, exactly.
Or bad.
Exactly.
Yeah, so
that's great. So Christian, so tell me a bit, how'd you get into this business? Like, what led you to do this?
How long do we have?
We have all day. We have how much time do we have on the camera, Mike?
How many terabytes of storage are we going to use?
No, elaborate. I think it's interesting because, I mean, obviously, where we're doing this podcast, we're talking to people who are in business and primarily serve the real estate market, because we're into property management, development, sales, and so on. So it's always good for people listening to get a sense of, how one gets to be a business owner and expand and serve this market and whichever. So take the time.
Well, starting with pest control, I mean, I worked for a courier company, and again, even though that was outside dealing with people, I had a designated route. You had your X amount of stops. It was very dictated.
Yeah.
So I saw a posting for another company, Able Pest Control. Shout out to them. And I met with Jeff. He's actually the branch manager here in Ottawa.
Okay.
And I got started with them. We had a great couple years together. And then eventually, with some people, you look at things, you're like, oh, maybe I could do this a little bit better. And then you start thinking, and then one thing leads to another. And I actually took a year off, got into finance. And then after that, put my name on a truck and just started driving around, seeing what I could do.
Okay. In the pest control industry?
In the pest control industry, yeah. So waited the full year and then loaded up a truck, got all the equipment, made business cards, and just started knocking on doors.
Yeah.
How else are you going to do it?
Yeah. Well, that's guerrilla marketing for you, right? So you right from the beginning, you go in, you start knocking on doors, and one lead becomes the second one, and the second one refers
word of mouth, right?
Job, and it grows, right? So
it's one of those industries. I mean, you probably experience the same thing on the real estate side. I mean, you look at any sign down the street, there's 100 real estate agents.
Yeah.
Somebody wants someone they can trust, even just a little bit. So if someone that you had sold a house for passes your name to someone that's selling a house, that trust is already there. So any service industry or industry like that, it's the same thing.
It's the same. Like when I started my management company many years ago, I remember trying to figure out what do you do? How do you start a business from scratch, right? Yeah. And I remember I would you just keep asking yourself, like, what do I have control over? What can I do? I can't, there's certain things you can't control. And I remember driving around just trying to think, like, what's the next thing I can do? Yeah. What is the next thing?
Step.
What do I have control today that can bring me closer into getting another management contract, right? And I remember driving and seeing somebody had a for rent sign in front of a property, so I said, just stop. And I knocked on the doors, says, can I help you? And then I'd literally drive around. And then one thing led to another, and next thing, and then you get 1 and 2 and 10 and 15 and 20, 100,
And you do a good job,
and then you just keep going. But it's I can appreciate the
first days are scary.
Yeah, the first years, but okay, day.
First days are really scary because you think to yourself, what am I doing?
Exactly.
And you know the industry, you know what you're doing as a service technician or route manager, that aspect. But as like a brand new business owner, you're like, I have no idea what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I mean, Google, get your, CRA affairs in order, get all that kind of stuff in order, get a good accountant, make sure you're compliant with things, get your licensing and your insurance and all that kind of stuff. But outside of that, it's kind of weird if you came from an environment where you're told what to do every day, but now you have to be a self-motivator. How are we going to get to this goal? And then again, it's just incremental steps, conversations, interactions.
Most rewarding thing to do. Yeah. And then generating leads, and how do How do you make sure that you serve them, and how do you keep that funnel keep filling the funnel?
Yeah,
you don't necessarily get deals right away, but yeah.
A wise man once told me, dig a well before you're thirsty.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
That's basically the crux of it.
That's
just keep digging, and
that's
you
a
might.
Wise man. Yeah.
Yeah.
And don't stop digging.
Yeah. Don't stop digging, because I mean, the moment you stop digging, you could be that close to an aquifer.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
so
as
soon money starts drying up, we took some risks, and there was a few times it's like, oh, I don't know about this. Yeah. And well, you just see it through. You just tell yourself you have to do it, and eventually you figure it out.
That the analogy of burn the boats, where I find you make me think of a funny thing that my dad tells me years ago when I started the company, where I showed up one day and we were chatting. I must have been quite discouraged that day, and I was telling him I was second guessing what I was doing, because I said, I was just looking at my last 30 days. I made like $200 and I spent over $600 in fuel. Yeah. What am I doing?
Yeah.
Right. What am I doing?
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, those
3 more months of this, then it's going to be, it's like game over.
What am I doing?
Yeah. Literally nothing. Or it feels
I
was
actually in the hole, but it's interesting how business is it's interesting.
It's an adventure, man. I think a lot of these people, maybe I don't know exactly your story, but a lot of people that kind of walk into businesses and buy businesses with the money they've earned elsewhere, or perhaps somebody else has earned and they've just bought into it. Like, I think there's something to be said about feet on the ground, knocking on doors, having no backup plan or a very minimal backup plan. Like, I'm sure you have accolades and other stuff you can be doing.
Yep.
Other than property management, and I could always jump in a delivery truck and kill it.
That's right.
I have a backup plan.
That's right.
But like, you somehow got to tell yourself, like, if you don't do this, everyone's gonna know you're failing. Like, you got to pressure yourself into getting it done.
That's what they call the dark energy.
Yeah. Well,
tap into
it. Can be motivating.
Yeah.
For sure.
What do you have to prove?
What do you have to prove?
What you have on your shoulder?
A great big one, apparently.
Me too. So let's go.
Exactly.
So that's interesting. So you work for Able Pest Control, took some time off, decided you're going to do this on your own, got your own truck, got your licensing, started knocking on doors, and then going. And correct me if I'm wrong, you're based out of Kingston. Right, exactly.
Kingston's home base for us,
Okay, sounds good. And then from there, like, what did that look like? So that's you were a one-man show, obviously.
Yeah, I was for quite some time.
Because, I mean, obviously, doing the pest control service and running a pest control business is two different
things.
Right?
Grateful for how slow it was in the beginning.
Yeah.
It allowed us to work out a lot of kinks and future-proof ourselves. Mm-hmm. When we first started, it was pen to paper. I hired an admin then to enter the pen to paper documents that we did. And like, it was just, we couldn't do that now. Yeah. So I got to learn those things early on without having the weight of big contracts, staff, HR practices and stuff like that on my shoulders. Right. So really grateful for the slow times because, if you don't have the slow, sometimes you get too far in the deep end and you just trying to tread water and you end up in a pickle. But
and correct me again if I'm wrong, you're 8 years into this business as Porter or
no? So Porter Pest Control, it's 5-year anniversary will be October of this year.
8 years, I guess, being in the industry, if I saw
about
that
8,
correctly.
7 to 8.
I read that online from you, so I'm going. Yeah. So if not, check your copyright. Well, maybe I misread.
Yeah, for real.
I think that's what I saw.
Maybe I did combined experience. That little trick.
It may have been. Yeah.
No, I think it's between 7 and 8. Yeah. Because I was with Able for 1 or 2 years, and then again the year off. I wasn't practicing pest control, but I mean, still licensed for it. So I mean, discount 1 year. Fair enough. It's somewhere around there.
Yeah. So in a day, I mean, obviously people, I mean, they have issues with pests. Like, what are the most common issues that you see? Raccoons, mice.
So I would
rats,
say,
so give us so somebody has a raccoon in their attic. Like, what you serve that?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So raccoons are obviously, or we like to call them trash pandas.
Yeah.
That's pretty common. I would say the most common
in the attic.
They tear the soffit off. They get up there, and ending kind of now, but a month and a half to now is like the breeding, so they have babies and stuff like that. So you got to be really cautious with that. You have to get them all out together.
Okay.
You can't just get mom out. You're gonna have a whole bunch of issues, and of course it's cruel. So we have to take measures to make sure mom babies get out, relocated safely together. Mom takes care of the babies.
Sure.
Check back, make sure everything's good.
Sure.
And then it's taken care of that way from like a humane
of course
standpoint.
Yeah, we want to do it that way. Yeah.
Well, yeah, of course. They're cute as hell, man.
Yeah.
Especially when they're small.
Yeah. I had one walking in the backyard in the middle of the day the other day in my house.
Oh, I'd stay away from him.
What the hell is that?
He's audacious.
Okay.
I would say the most common though, like we're kind of different. We like the most common call. It depends on the season.
Mm-hmm.
So
seasonal. So let's go season. So you're saying now so raccoons are going to be or
raccoon, like wildlife wise, squirrels, raccoons.
Yeah.
People start seeing bats getting active. Can't do anything about bats right now either. But
you can't do anything about that.
You have to wait until breeding's over.
Okay.
Because you can't exclude them while they're nursing.
Okay.
Not good.
Okay.
The one thing I would say is the most common is just mice and rats. Like just your regular old rodents. That is super common. And then of course roaches, bed bugs.
Okay.
Very common. A lot more common than I think a lot of people would think.
Yeah. Okay.
People always ask me where
are the worst. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll tell you what.
We're gonna touch that specifically.
I would sooner have bed bugs in my house than I would roaches.
Is that right?
Yes.
Cockroaches.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yeah. Okay. Well, there's new products for bed bugs that are very, very good, and it's a lot easier than it used to be.
Okay.
Roaches, again, when monitored properly and attacked properly, can be solved as well.
Okay.
But for my house, I choose bed bugs.
Yeah. Is that right?
As uncomfortable as that is,
okay.
100%.
Okay.
But,
I can just imagine.
But I'd say mice, rats, roaches, bed bugs.
Okay.
Is at least the top 4.
Okay. And those are the most common ones that you see
deal with on a day-to-day. I could pull up my phone and grab like 5 emails that probably have at least 3 out of 4 in there.
Okay.
From today alone, just across our network, of course, but the incoming requests for that kind of service, it's just, and it doesn't seem to matter how many companies there are.
Okay.
If you talk to like some of our industry partners, some of the smaller guys I communicate with, it's the same.
Okay.
And like whoever comes on the scene, they're in
this region. Yeah, they're all seeing.
Well, Ottawa, I can't pretend to be well versed on it, but Kingston for sure.
Okay.
Kingston, Belleville, Brockville, that kind of thing.
Sure.
It's
just. I guess Mike, you're doing this area here, right?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Right,
yeah. So he would know more about what we.
And I'm assuming it's quite similar.
Quite similar.
Here with Christian, it's exactly the same here. The trend's true as well.
Yeah. Okay.
And it goes like this.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah. One week. Nothing. You're working on stuff, and then the next week, everyone needs something done yesterday.
Okay.
It's nature of any business, I think, really.
Yeah. And when you're ready, you're ready, and then all of a sudden you're over.
You know how many calls we get though? Yeah. Well, my husband tried to do this, or my wife told me to call you, and we're going in there and we're playing therapist most of the time.
Oh, okay.
It's unbelievable.
Okay, so it's pest control /therapy.
Therapy. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
We charge extra for that.
I didn't realize that. But /marriage counseling /.
I mean, we do a lot of commercial stuff, so we're more or less the middleman between. I mean, for you, we'd be middleman between you and the tenant.
Right.
We're the problem solver.
Right.
And solution presenter.
Right.
But when it's residential, it's always somebody else's fault.
Right.
It's the neighbors. It's this. It's that. But again, it's nobody's fault. It's happening. Let's just deal with it.
Yeah. I know.
At the end of the day.
So you serve both the commercial aspects. So whether it's a mall, an office building, a house. So you get wherever the need is, you can serve.
Yeah, 100%. Okay. So we touch, I would say, almost every industry.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, except manufacturing, we don't really get into that too much, just because there's a lot of different things that go along with that.
Mm-hmm.
But multi-res properties, single dwellings, management companies, restaurants, hotels.
Yeah, restaurants, I can imagine.
And again, like with the restaurant thing too, people, tell me where not to eat. I'm not telling you nothing.
Yeah.
Like there's plenty of places that I've probably eaten that it just.
Yeah.
If it happens, it happens.
Yeah.
What's important is it's being managed.
That's right.
Right. You want a good team of people managing it.
Right.
Because it's called pest control.
That's right.
There's thresholds and there's everything else that kind of goes into that.
Mm-hmm.
Depending on, I would say, each public health unit, they have their own kind of like thresholds that they think is
normal. Yeah, I can imagine.
So there's intricacies with that.
Yeah.
But it just happens. It's not particularly anybody's fault, but I mean, if it is your fault, I'll tell you.
Yeah, of course. No, but I think there's certain things that are definitely no-nos. I'm assuming when it comes to garbage and how you manage your food waste, or doors and seals and you know,
Everything.
if you have excrements and you don't do anything, and then whichever. So
garbage is the biggest thing, like garbage storage. And I mean, for rats and roaches, especially like in multi-residential dwellings, and like how some places are set up, it's just, again, they're kind of designed not by purpose, but designed for failure.
Right.
You know, like if you have you go to a place and tenants are just throwing the garbage out on their back deck, and then, oh my gosh, we have rats. Oh my gosh, we've never had a problem here before. It's like, okay, well, you know, what changed?
That's right.
First of all, what changed?
That's right.
What's going on now? How can we work all together? Me, the property manager, the tenant, like
that's right. That's right.
Triple,
minimize,
you know, a team, right?
Of course.
Everyone's got to be on the same page to address the issue.
And I'm assuming, I mean, obviously, apart from somebody calling having an issue, do you offer services for like preventive maintenance, or like, because I've seen buildings sometimes where they have contracts where somebody, you know, they're monitoring for every month or second month or whichever. Like, do you offer the same types of services for monitoring that way?
So again, that is like IPM 101 is always just monitoring, being proactive, and looking at these things and just carefully seeing what's going on. Again, and then the moment something's out of whack, you know, you go to this place, say we're servicing a restaurant for 6 months, and on month number 6, one monitor shows 3 or 4 roaches on it. We've never had roaches here before. Red flag. Go right to the manager, whoever's taking care of things, you know, like what's, you know, did you switch suppliers? Again, it could just be chance, but it's good to know as much information as possible. Right? Especially if you have a couple restaurants and then, you know, they all have this one supplier and then bang.
Okay.
Again, it's possible, not impossible, or it could be a complete coincidence. But
what would be a cause, save a restaurant to have cockroaches? I mean, you're pointing out now that a certain supplier may have been, you know, they're using the same supplier. Perhaps it's coming in this way. But is that a common occurrence?
It's hard to say. So it can be supplier, it can be staff. There's plenty of issues where I've been in a situation where I was servicing. How do I say this? I was servicing a rental property, and I was also servicing a restaurant, and the person who lived in one of the properties also worked at the restaurant. And the person, like the actual property, the dwelling itself, had a severe roach issue.
Oh, okay.
But I also have a professional courtesy to not say anything to the restaurant owner, because I have a professional courtesy to the management company. Right. So again, because, you know, it's going to make everybody look bad. Again, the problem is the problem. Let's resolve it. That's what it comes down to. But those kind of crossovers happen very frequently. I think.
So cockroaches just don't show up. They're brought in from another
environment. They're brought in on something. They don't just right. It's not. They're not unicorns. They don't just show up out of nowhere. Right. But again, there's so if you look at any restaurant, like you have so many dynamics and like factors. You have, say, any restaurant, 10 to 20 staff. Those staff have 2 to 4 friends, who have, you know, 2 to 4 exponential dwellings that they associate with, and then their group of friends, and then of course, then you have A, B, C supplier for all different kinds of products, whether it be food or, you know, pest control suppliers, vendors, anything. You have and then you have customers. You have, if you're a great restaurant, you have hundreds of people coming in and out, and it only takes one to cause an issue, right? If you have so it's not typically. So if I'm understanding this correctly, so it's not necessarily because they have, you know, they're. I'm assuming sanitarily they should be. There's certain standards that should be followed. There has to be, but in your experience that it's being introduced from other places, and this when you find it, and once it's there, the sanitation issues become a super big problem, right? So like we have restaurants, you know, that we take care of that could do better on their after hours cleaning and stuff like that. They don't have an issue. Okay. But my point to the manager is, listen, if you ever have an issue, it will grow way faster than if you did not have this issue.
Fair enough.
Because it's food source.
Of course.
Right? If you have a dish pit that's just covered in grease and food matter, and it's, you know, the caulking's out of off the tiles, and the water seeps in and just it just breeds filth. Right.
That's what it attracts, and then they
and then populate. Of course, if they're introduced, you're not helping yourself. That's for sure. No. And there's no magic wand. We don't have any magic wand that can undo those things. Like,
and what is so if you're brought in, say, to a restaurant where they have a cockroach issue, like what is an expected time frame to resolve the issue? Because I'm assuming you don't go there and it's like, oh, okay, let's pull them all out, boom, 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 and get them out. I mean, there must be there must
It
be.
really depends. I
on
would
how
say,
severe.
again, certain thresholds, certain allowable limits, certain parameters. And again, if you go into a restaurant, I know how I would do it if it were my restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
But owners might not be receptive to an overnight deal where, again, there actually has to be
Right.
thresholds met to use certain products anyway. So there's a lot of like stuff that you have to, like requirements you have to meet prior to a big treatment.
Sure.
But even if you hit those requirements, getting,
Excuse me, getting compliance from the owner.
the owner or approval, or sometimes there's just a lack of understanding.
Yep.
Sometimes it's normal for certain people, like certain owners just don't care.
Right.
And we try not to deal with those folks. We try just to, okay, fine,
Yes,
then we're not the company for you.
You can't resolve the issue.
Well, we're never going to be allowed to. We're a pest control company. You want us to just sign off on paperwork. We're not that company.
No, of course not.
So we're in the solutions business. We look to
With
solve
actual
things.
solutions.
Yeah, exactly. We don't sit there and just sign here, thanks, everything's fine, and just walk out. There's plenty of places I've been, again, where I do like a cold call.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, do you have your binder?
Yeah.
Our binder? I'm like, yeah. Do you have your service history? Do you have like, what is, in our jurisdiction we have KFLA. Like, well, what does KFLA look at when they come in here? Oh, well, they haven't been in yet. I'm like, oh, you're gonna wish you met me sooner.
Yeah.
Because the day they come in here, oh boy.
Yeah.
Because they want to see everything. They want, and rightfully so. It's a public establishment serving food.
Sure.
Like you need. I mean, I think as a consumer, you have a right to know what's going on in this restaurant. I don't know if you have that here in Ottawa.
Yeah, there must be a version of it. Yeah, I'm not in that industry, so I don't know. But yeah,
it's usually there's stickers on the front door and you can scan it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I guess you can see if they've had issues or
exactly.
I think it's public record.
It's Ottawa Public Health has that.
Right. Yeah.
And then you can scan the QR code and get the history of the restaurant. It's also available on their website, so you can see all previous inspections.
Sure.
And everything else.
Yeah. So that's our biggest thing is compliance, documentation.
Sure.
And just showing as much as you possibly can with pictures, words, and actions, like where we're going and how we're trying to get there.
Okay.
Again, but if we don't have a compliant owner or anything like that, someone who doesn't want to solve the issue, like, again, we'll try to work with people, but like if it's becomes apparent to us, like you're never interested in actually doing what's required, no problem. Like, here, you know what? Like, just there's lots of other companies that might do what you want them to do.
Yep.
I mean, but it's not what we do.
Of course not.
Because
it's not right.
I don't want something popping up on the internet.
Yeah.
Oh, this blah 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 blah, and then they take a picture of our devices somewhere. Oh, these guys don't know what they're doing. It's like, we don't want that.
Problematic all the way around.
Yeah, and it's bad luck for the restaurants, bad luck for us, and like it just kind of gives me an icky feeling if I know I'm not doing my best.
No, of course not.
Right?
No.
So
and you're your pest control company. You want to resolve issues, like you say, right? So
yeah, there's not a million of us around because we don't want to.
No,
fix issues.
Exactly.
Right? There's lots of companies. There's lots of good companies out there.
Yep.
I'm not saying there isn't, but some maybe just be happy to sign off the ticket and forget about it.
Yeah.
So some owners are maybe used to that. I don't know.
Yeah.
We're young in business.
Yeah, it depends on who the owner is, who the business they're dealing with, and what the interaction is. And
well, it comes down to
an
money
ethical
too.
aspect of how you're doing this as well. But
and no business likes expenses.
No, of course not.
Right.
But I'd rather have an expense than cockroaches.
Yeah, 100%. I don't. If it was my restaurant, I don't think there'd be a number.
Yeah.
Unless I truly had, like, if I had to remortgage a house, maybe I'd consider just shutting the restaurant down.
No, exactly.
I'd try to do my best as, again, but I can't pretend to know that industry. So.
No, that's fair.
Yeah.
And what about bed bugs? Like bed bugs, are they? I'm assuming when they call them bed bugs, it's because they're primarily found on mattresses, or is this
in vicinity of somewhere you kind of spend a lot of time? So most of the time,
a lot of time. Okay.
Yeah. So, but I would say mainly in bed because that's where most people spend their abundance of the time when they're at home and they're still.
Sure.
In some cases, if someone's retired or something like that, they like to sit on the couch a lot longer than most people. Gravitate toward the couch, that kind of thing. So they're very closely in proximity of where you're hanging out
where people are at.
Yeah, most of the time, again, like we go into, I don't know, pick an example, any one-bedroom apartment.
Yeah,
we're automatically, again, the new products allow you to do certain things now that you weren't able to do before.
Okay.
And we're automatically treating the bedroom areas and the living room areas just because. Like a lot of the time,
just to be careful. Yeah,
exactly. It's preventative.
Yeah. Of course.
But most of the time, if you look hard enough and you have one bedroom apartment, just let's paint the picture here. Single guy in his 30s, works all day, comes home, plays video games on the couch, goes to bed. There is no reason why a bed bug would not be in his couch, hanging out where he's at, 6-7 hours a night, or however long he plays video games. How addictive he is to Call of Duty or whatever. There's no reason why they shouldn't be there. Right? And it's good pest control.
And how do people typically know? I mean, a cockroach, you can see it, but I mean, in bed bugs, my understanding is that you don't necessarily always see them. People will have bite marks or whichever. Or
this is the crazy thing about bed bugs. I'll give an example of one I just went to. So the daughter moved in with her mother, and then started getting bites. The mother had no bites. Okay, so the daughter moved her stuff in. You got to do a little bit of deducing. You got to think, okay, so is this a source issue? We did a thorough inspection in the daughter's room, took everything apart, didn't really find any evidence of like a lingering infestation, blah, blah, blah. Found one bug. Okay, well, that's obviously, one's more than enough.
Right.
But that's interesting. Showed the mother, oh, I have those in my room. Really? Go take her bed apart. And it must have been there for a year or better.
Okay.
The amount of evidence, the dirt, their feces, and like the shells and
no way
eggs and all that kind of stuff.
She had
no actual, like, not to say she wasn't being bitten.
Yeah, she just didn't realize.
Wasn't reacting.
Okay.
Her skin wasn't reacting. The daughter, she had great big welts.
Oh no.
From like the second day she moved in. So some people, again, this is why building inspections and preventative and all that kind of like proactive inspections and stuff like that are super helpful.
Yeah.
And a lot of the time in multi-residential situations, people are scared.
Yep.
They there's like a what do you call it? Stigma. That's it. Yeah, they don't want to say anything. Right. Until you knock on the door. Hi, we're doing a preventative inspection. It's been commissioned by your property manager. It's an active measure to make sure we're getting on top of things before they become a problem. Have you seen anything crawling around that shouldn't be? Ants. Maybe ants or roaches, or have you ever heard of bed bugs? Have you seen those? Those kinds of conversations.
Typically, when you'd be brought in, it's because there's been an issue somewhere else, or because.
No.
Okay. Okay.
This is proactive.
Yeah. Fair enough.
We do actually have some programs with some of our property managers that they pick blocks and we just proactively inspect them.
Oh, proactively.
Yeah, because again,
but I mean, apart from somebody complaining about it, it'd be tough to point out, wouldn't it?
Bed bugs, yes. Roaches, no. But sometimes, I mean. Like I would say 80 to 90% of the time, it's just the conversation. You talk sensitive, you're nice to the person. Of course, you're being professional. And then actually, I did see something. What is this? They get their phone out.
Yeah, because they took a picture. Yeah.
It's right there.
Okay.
Mark that one down.
Okay.
And then you move block to block. So say you find, the block inspection is designed, basically you have an infested unit. So then a block inspection you should be doing automatically.
Sure.
As soon as you hear about it, above, below, side to side, and across the hall.
Okay.
Mandatory. In my book. Not everybody's, but a lot of companies, that's what they do. We do the same. And then say you find one on the easterly corner. Mandatory above, below, side to side, across.
Right.
So you want to get as close to the quote unquote, again, who's saying there's a source or not a source, but you want to find every last thing. Because say you found one, okay, nobody else said anything. You could have 3, 4, 5, 6 more units that haven't said anything. And then this problem is persisting in this other unit who is addressing it, but they're connected by conduits and, utility and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
And, we're not solving this issue. What's going on? Why wait that long? Why just not knock on the doors? Sure. We offer it for next to nothing, if not nothing. Sometimes when we're on site, you may as well just get it done.
Right.
And again, the proactive measure.
So say for example, you identify you want to do when you say you want to go to the next door unit, is that just a visual inspection, or is that like is there a treatment? Like what does that look like?
First of all, like notice is issued prior to. So we usually kind of link it up with the treatment day since we're already on site. Issue notice to these units. And then we'll make arrangements for the tenant who's getting treated, get them the guidelines, what they need to do, what the expectations are, vacate periods and stuff like that. Follow-up procedures. We explain it very in depth to them, and then we just do the inspection, and then basically report back to what we found, get notice for the next section we have to inspect. That would be the practice.
Okay.
And then once
but that inspection is that
It's just visual,
it's
getting
just
in there,
visual, 'cause
having the conversation.
So you'll be able to identify fairly quickly if you think there's an issue.
Yeah, so
Okay.
I mean, roaches are probably a lot easier to find. Bed bugs require a little bit more. But if we're there for a bed bug issue, we're looking like actively, just because again, maybe somebody's not saying anything. But then, of course, when we find those other locations, then they are given the preparation documents and you know, speech and everything else. Then we get them booked in, and then we get the other 5 looked at.
Sure.
And we just keep going down the line until we find everything that we can find and solve the issue. Like the goal is to solve the issue for good.
Right. And is it like
none of these endless follow-ups?
And is this when you do a treatment, is that a one-time treatment and then a follow-up to see if it's worked, or is it multiple?
It depends on what you're dealing with.
Yeah.
Most of our programs are follow-ups are included. So like a lot of people, especially in commercial, you get what's called the program. So anything you need within a certain time frame, you have us for.
Sure.
But for bed bugs example, most of the time, if it's well prepped and well cared for on the tenant side, and you know everyone's working together on this, you can solve it with one. For the ones that are trickier, we do offer a follow-up, of course, look at it and address it if it needs to be addressed, touch-ups, whatever needs to be done. But the biggest thing is preparation.
Sure.
So,
and we talked about stigma a bit earlier as well. So I noticed the vehicles that there's lettering and on that. If you're going on site, somebody wants to be discreet, you tell them, you know, can you come with an unmarked vehicle and don't put your Porter hat on.
So this is actually a really good question.
Flip it back in and put a no-name brand, or just so you're not alerting. Say, why is the pest control company coming into the building?
The best phrase is, "Oh, what are you here for? Maintenance."
Oh, right.
I mean, you can always use that phrase,
fair enough. Yeah.
and usually that is 100% accurate. And it's not that you're lying; it's just do you really need to tell the other hotel goers?
Why are you only going to that unit?
Water leak. But that's one thing we actually are trying to move away from now. Like some of the newer trucks, Mike's truck, the one that we just got in Kingston, very subtle branding.
Sure.
So a lot of our commercial partners and even residential partners really appreciate it. Like those trucks get attention. Yeah. That was great early on. That was the second truck we got. The first truck was just like that. Yeah. With big bold letters, and everyone was telling, "Oh, I see your trucks everywhere." Blah, blah, blah. So it was getting the attention it needed. Yeah.
And then some don't want it if you're
some don't want it, house. Right? So it doesn't look good.
No,
they don't really appreciate it. Like we've had people like, "Oh, do you mind parking down the road?" And we always try to park inconspicuously. Like we don't. Again, if we were doing something here, we wouldn't be right up front.
No,
exactly.
Right? Exactly. So, park in front of the neighbors.
Yeah, exactly. Do you like the neighbors? No problem. I'll park over there.
Park there. Put in a driveway. They're going to work. It's
but discretion. Aside from vehicles, discretion is everything. Yeah. You know, when we're going into,
I can appreciate that. I mean, if somebody, you know,
it's like, you wouldn't want that advertised.
No.
You know, like our stuff is kind of low key. Yeah. You know, we could just put tape over that part if you wanted to. Yeah. But discretion, I mean, it comes with, you know, like our service equipment. So like we have rolling toolboxes or anything else that usually covers everything, or buckets that have things in, but you wouldn't be able to tell what it is. Right. And you just walk in, "Hi, how are you? Nice to see you. Yeah, I'm just going to go take care of that, you know, blah, blah," and then carry on your merry way. Just like stop, enough. Like don't look at anyone, just just do your business. Unless you got to talk to somebody who's actually got the issue, of course. No. Like in a commercial setting.
No, I'm just talking because you alluded to stigma before, so I said, I can see how. I mean, not for you, but for the person receiving the service.
I've seen companies again. Like I'm not throwing shade, but like this could have been just one of the people that they had working for them, that maybe. But like you knew where this guy worked and what he did for a living. He just walked into a restaurant like 1:00. Yeah. And he had his tool bag with him and everything else, and I'm like, what? Like no.
It's like rat catcher.
Yeah, well,
what are you doing?
He was there. He was there for something else. So I was like, oh my goodness. I was like, oh, okay, well, you know, if that guy ever sends an application, maybe we should give that a second consideration. Yeah. I just got to check my phone. It's been vibrating 4 times. Yeah. Sorry about that.
Yeah. Hey, business is business.
Yeah. I just want to make sure. Business first. Yeah. You just want to make sure it's
or your wife,
not the school or anything.
Or your wife or kids. Then we got to stop.
See you later.
Yeah, bye now.
No, it's all good.
Good.
But okay, so good. The stigma thing again, with residential less so, because again, it's just mice or rats usually. Yeah. But if it is
mice or rats.
Yeah. Well, that's another thing. Yeah. You know, if the neighbor asks you, "What are you there for?" "Oh, I'm just doing some spider work." You know. Yeah. "Oh, that's great." Or like, you know, you downplay, because again, you don't want to be standoffish to the curious neighbor. Yeah. Of course, like he's a member of your community. It's very tight knit. You don't want to see him at the grocery store later, like. Yeah. But you also don't want to give the customers
ammunition.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to give them. Yeah. You know.
I was at a property in a crawl space yesterday, and I was with one of the guys, and I look at him and I said, and there's a rotten rat. I'm like, do you want to take it?
Yeah.
Are you hungry?
Make a placemat.
But it was anyways. It wasn't. It was just funny. Yeah. So apart from so the services provide obviously an interior. Do you do exterior work as well?
Yeah.
Or like so if somebody has I don't know, they have a coyote that's always on their lawn.
So we don't do nuisance trapping.
Okay.
So nuisance trapping is a very niche thing. You need all kinds of special licenses and all those kinds of things for that. We don't really get into that. Okay. Just because. So
nuisance trapping is just because they're outside and they're.
Nuisance is like big wildlife.
Sure.
And everything else. Sorry, I really got to.
Yeah, that's okay.
Good afternoon, Christian speaking.
But this is business in motion, right?
Yep. No problem. You have a good day. All right. Bye-bye. Very nice, but please don't spaz call me 5 times. Like, he makes me think something's on fire.
Yeah. Well, it is for them.
Yeah, it is for them. That's right. Everyone's biggest problem is their biggest problem.
It's like when you say you put the work orders, they could put urgent. Like, don't put that. Everybody it's urgent.
Actually, I do like.
I would say it's urgent for you.
Yeah,
not for me.
Yeah. Well, actually, it's funny you say that. We again, those kinds of things, and like looking at the work orders that come through from you guys, it's like. Yeah. Okay, it's very descriptive and it's very appreciated because it gives you a good idea what you're walking into.
Exactly.
Right? Some tenants are really back, some tenants are very upset about things, and again, play the middleman.
Yeah. And and some people are upset. I mean, listen, I find I'll get a mouse, then it's no big deal, but from other people, it'd be the end of the world, right?
Yeah, of course. So we have a lot of those kinds of things, and some people don't even say anything.
Right.
That's why the proactive measures of inspections and reporting and documentation are so important.
Right.
Looking for the problem.
So we are saying nuisance trapping is not something that you do. So define what nuisance trapping is versus not.
It pertains to, I would say, pertains to anything that we don't do. So like you're talking coyotes, foxes, beavers. Okay. That kind of wildlife.
Sure. They're not in your house essentially.
Not usually. That's I would call it almost like land trapping would be. Sure. They're causing an obstruction. The beavers are damming a creek and it's backflowing over a farmer's crops or something like that. Like I don't know, honestly, I don't know too much about it. Yep. I just know that it's not something we do just because of, I'm sure there's a bunch of permits involved and like the actual process of getting it done and doing it properly, which is important to us. Yep. It would be a lot of time that we probably just don't have.
No, fair enough.
And, to find a good nuisance trapper, I think that would be another thing. Right. Most guys that are good at it are just doing it on their own property. Sure. And they're farmers that aren't really keen to work for anybody else. No. Fair enough. Something we haven't really got into.
That's good. So if a business owner, whether a restaurant or say, for example, somebody owns a multifamily building and they want to have preventive measures in place, like what does that look like for that owner? So if I own a restaurant, I say, listen, Christian, I'd like to bring you guys in to do preventive so I don't run into issues. Like, what does that look like? What questions do they have to ask? Like, what would you tell them?
What would I tell them to ask? Like a pest control company?
Yeah.
Okay. So, first of all...
Or what we suggest they ask you.
If you're a restaurant owner, you would focus on probably, I'd say 3 main things. Mm-hmm. Well, maybe 4. Well, there's a lot. So I'll just run them off and we'll count them. So, licensed exterminator, number 1. Mm-hmm. If the gentleman or lady shows up to your place and they don't have a operator's license sticker, red flag right off the bat. Number 2, insurance. Mm-hmm. They can't provide you with insurance. They don't want to provide you with insurance. They don't want to provide you with their operator's license. Yep. Red flag number 2. Yep. Documentation. Mm-hmm. What does their documentation look like? Mm-hmm. I've seen documents from other companies that are, pretty, prevalent companies that don't have appropriate pesticide documentation or notation or reporting factored into that. Okay. So I don't know what the liabilities are, but I think as a restaurant owner, you should hire someone who does the right thing and documents it accordingly because legally speaking, they have to. Sure. But they're not.
That's right.
And then, of course...
it'd be tough for the owner to know that.
They wouldn't know that, right? Unless they practice it. Sure. It's easy for, again, any pest control tech or any plumber can walk into anyone's house and pick apart the job that was done previous. Yep. But like as an owner securing a new contract from any provider... Mm-hmm. I want a copy of your operator's license, and I want a copy of your insurance, and I want your technician license. Sure. Every truck has to have an operator's in it. Every technician has to carry their structural exterminator license. Sure. And you have to have your insurance with you. Mm-hmm. So if they say no to any of those 3 things, they either
They're off to a bad start. Yep.
you're not doing spectacular.
Sure.
And then the fourth thing, I guess, would be obviously pricing.
Right.
What you get in this industry is basically what you pay for.
Mm-hmm.
There's plenty of places that, in the bigger cities, of course, it's very saturated markets, $20 a month and this and this and this.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. What are they doing for $20?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. He shows up and he has a look around and I sign off on it. Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
No devices, no documentation,
Mm-hmm.
maybe perhaps no licensing, perhaps other issues that you can't see with just the paperwork. So I think, obviously don't pick the most expensive. I'm sure there's going to be exorbitantly priced companies out there, but you want to make sure that you're getting all the things for what you're paying for primarily.
Yeah, fair enough.
And then, of course, the actual control measures.
Yeah, because I can imagine, I'm just speculating here, but my assumption is that if you're brought into, say, a restaurant or a multifamily building, what your recommendations will differ depending on the building. Right?
Yes.
Depending on where the garbage chute is, or where the recycling is, or how it's designed, or
what kind of shape is it in?
Yeah.
Right.
Like,
where do we even bother trying to set up something unless we fix this great big gaping hole? Right. Like those kinds of things.
Sure.
And we always bring those things to the attention of the owners or managers or whoever. If we can fix it, we'll offer to fix it.
Okay. So that was my next question. Yes.
But if it's out of our scope, it's out of our scope. Like we're not gonna rebrick a great big old utility hole in the side of the building. We might temporarily patch that for you, but we're going to highly recommend a mason or someone does that.
That's right. That's right.
Do I know a mason? No.
Yeah.
Right. Like the answer is always no, because I might know. Yeah. Anyways, so you be careful who you recommend. Right?
That's fair. Yeah. So recommendations can vary depending on the building, depending on circumstances. Yeah. So it'll vary from one owner to
one building, one owner, one situation, one pest.
And if they have a problem versus they just want preventative measures, and obviously,
exactly. Right? So I'll give you an example. A new restaurant's getting set up. In Kingston, there's only so many buildings to choose from. I've been in Kingston my entire life. I might approach that person. Hey, I used to take care of the restaurant that was here previous. You might be interested in our services. I know these are some key things that you should know about the building. If you haven't noticed those, give me a call anytime for any questions. Happy to answer your calls or questions.
Sure.
Like no pressure, whatever.
Yeah.
And then, eventually when things settle down, they're looking to secure a pest control supplier. Hopefully they pick us. And then again, you just go in if you know the building well enough. If you don't know the building, you take them with you. Right. And just show them everything. This could be a problem. This could be a problem. This could be a problem. Or what we should do is do our basic plan inside and out. And as the problems arise, we deal with it then. Right. Because we don't really know what's going to happen because I haven't taken care of this building yet, etc. There's a lot of different.
It seems to me that's more of like a relationship building exercise where a relationship with the owner and the expectation, the recommendations that that you would provide, as well as the actual building.
Yeah, we're invested 100%.
Like this is not a one-time.
Thanks for your service call.
It's really a relationship mitigation to try to mitigate the issues or potential issues coming in.
And any good relationship, communication is key. So again, I'll keep saying documentation 100 times today, but that is so key because the restaurant owner or the person.
And when you say documentation, means that every time you do your inspections, you report back, I see this, or I saw an evidence of that. And
hey, this looks like this got broke. This should be fixed because this could be an issue. I noticed this on the monitor. We should watch this again. Keep a close eye on this. If you need us, please call us. stuff like that. Or sanitation issues. Again, when the boss isn't around, a lot of the times things don't get done to the standard. You want to be able to you're looking after the place.
Sure.
We're an extension of in a commercial setting, we're an extension of them. Right. It's our name on it too. Right. Their name's on out front, but our name's on this. Right. And if it's not being looked after, I have a personal problem with that. Right. If I go into a place and we've done this in the past and those employees are no longer with us, stuff's not dated, stuff's not this, stuff's not that. It's nope, that's not fair. Hey, so I can't tell that this was done properly in the last month or 2 months. That month's free. This month's free, whatever. Yep. We're back on track now. Right. Here's my direct number. Right. Here's the new guy. He's great. You're going to love him. Here's his card. Just contact communication over and over and over again. Interesting. Because they're your partners at the end of the day.
Of course. Yeah. And you want, obviously, and that's what I'm getting from this. Obviously, these are not one-time services in most cases. They're preventive maintenances, and you're building a relationship to try to mitigate any issues. So
of course. It's the 80-20 rule. 80% of it's probably relationship building, communication, documentation, and all that kind of stuff. 20% of it's probably pest control. Right. And you got to make sure you're there for that 20%. Yep. And you're there by that 20% because you really build deep relationships with these people. some of these kids, like they go to my daughter's school, and we see them in the parking lot, and we end up at the same park together on the weekend.
Christian, I have a bed bug.
Yeah. I never heard that one. Yeah, I never heard that one out loud. But I've heard, hey, my friend has bed bugs.
My friend.
My friend. Now listen, pal. I only know you got 2 friends.
I recommend that he deals with it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's true, though. The stigma that comes with it, you can't shy away from it. I mean, that's a real thing.
Well, and nobody wants to announce that.
No, of course not.
But again, discretion and understanding, and just letting people know it's not. There's so many houses that are like pristine clean that end up with issues.
Yeah,
I've
seen that. I've actually seen that where it's you see the perception we get is you have these issues typically in properties that are filthy or unkept, which I suspect would be more conducive.
They might be more prevalent,
but
not always the case.
We've seen some of the. How does that happen here, right? So
and
sometimes it's either like you said, either somebody inside hasn't noticed, or somebody brings in a new mattress or something, or then there's a.
That's another thing. Used furniture or any even electronic devices and stuff like that. People should be really looking over those carefully.
Is that right? Eh?
Very carefully. I can't tell you the amount of times it's just like, oh, I bought this thing and then I just noticed that there a cockroach came out of it, and you look at the back of it and it's just like, how did you not notice? And you're like, oh yeah, because you don't do pest control.
Right.
You wouldn't know to look for that.
Right. Yeah.
So you can't blame them. It was a good deal.
Yeah. Hey, you feel my body.
Yeah, that doesn't go away, by the way. That does not go away.
You don't get used to that, yeah?
No. There's some places you come out of and you're just...
Yeah, like, ooh, I can feel it again. Yeah. In our experience in the rental business is that we'd say probably I'm going to say half of the applicants, approximately half, have some form of a pet, a cat, a dog, or so. Right. So if somebody has pets and they're called in, say you're called in to do a service, is there pet-friendly type services or there really is issues?
So what is the thing with pet-friendly is if the label is followed, dilution rates are appropriated, and everything is respected according to the actual product you're using. Yeah, it's pet-friendly.
Okay.
But the problem,
human-friendly too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, there's probably again, I don't spray on crops, but I imagine there's probably some pretty heavy stuff that goes on our crops. Yeah, right. Yep. But when it comes to pet-friendly or anything, again, if we're ever spraying residual in a house, even if the vacate period says even if it says only 2 hours, we always recommend 4. Right. And then if you have certain conditions,
so when you say so that they're not in the
nobody is pets, people, anything that lives and breathes that you care about. Out of the house.
Yeah, interesting.
Strict precaution. Even if the vacate period says 2 hours, it's 4. And some products will say 6, it's 8. Right. Additionally, there's on the label documentation and read the label is these guys hate it because they tell them all the time, read the label. But it's so important because it gives you all the information you need. Right. So if a person has a respiratory illness or something like that, they're to consult their doctor. So again, having the proper documentation, the proper SDS forms, the proper resources to share with the PM, the resident, the tenant. Hey, this is what we're applying. Talk to your doctor. Here's a binder, or you can look them up online. Here's the PCP numbers, which is the Pest Control Products Act registration number. And they can look up everything about that product, SDS sheets, the label, everything. So...
And if there is an issue, say, okay, my doctor says I shouldn't be exposed to this, then what does that look like from a pest control?
Then we look at alternative methods, alternative products, something different. There's different ways to go about it. I think every pest or every situation is a bit different. Okay. But of course...
But would it be, okay, then it's not a 6-hour vacate, it needs to be 12 hours or
whatever the doctor recommends.
Okay.
So
okay.
So typically
okay.
Typically
so it wouldn't necessarily be you modifying the service, it'd be them
modifying the vacate.
Modifying the vacate or
or we're going to try to accommodate them as best we can. If we have a product that has as long as it doesn't affect the efficacy of the actual treatment, putting them out for an extra couple hours is better than not solving the issue.
Of course.
But if it is a true health concern, then completely modifying the program is in the best interest of their health. And of course, we're going to look to do that, of course, as well.
Interesting.
Yeah, everything's dynamic. Everybody's different.
Yeah.
As much information as you can provide is better.
Okay.
And we have resources shared within our, client portal. They have all the SDS sheets of everything we use, and they can look on the sheets and know what we're going to use because it's all there. Documentation, label.
Documentation, labels. Mike, documentation, label, read the label.
You wait till you
read
see
the label.
Yeah. I'm not worried about him. Not one bit.
See, you got me trained now too.
Yeah,
so read the label.
Read the label. I can't stress that enough.
Yeah.
And honestly, you can just every once in a while, if you're bored, which we're never usually bored, but just pick up the label and just read it for fun.
Right.
Like there might be a use for that product that you hadn't even thought about using. Because again, there's a lot of biology in managing, certain pests, right? Mm-hmm. So there's certain things you need to rotate in and stuff like that to, basically make sure they don't become resilient to certain products.
Okay.
So if you're reading another product that you haven't used before for this certain thing, and you look at, it's labeled for that, you can use it like this. Mm-hmm. Oh, well, why don't we try that? Mm-hmm. Right? Mm-hmm. Why wouldn't you just knowledge is everything.
Right.
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 And if you're taking your spare 20 minutes and reading the label, you might be that much further ahead of someone who's not. And you could be doing a way better job.
Yeah.
Always learning.
Yeah, always learning.
Good.
Read the label.
Read the label. Yeah.
Sleep tonight. Read the label.
Call me. Let me yell at you. Read the label.
Read the label. Hey, Christian, is there anything else that we missed? I think we're trying to give a sense of the services that you offer. We know the nuisance stuff you don't do. Mice, raccoons, rats, bed bugs, cockroaches. This kind of seems to be the mainstay.
Yeah, and then you get your seasonal stuff. Like people get their houses insect sprayed so they don't build nests and stuff like that. Like for aesthetics and stuff. Mm-hmm. We do a lot of that, but that's basically on a case by case. Where if the person is asking for it, they already know what it is. That's what they want. They've had it done. They live by the water, not too close to the water, but if they live by the water, then insects become a problem. They're looking to seek those services out. Now you can market that. Yeah. We don't spend a lot of time marketing it because again, the people that know they want it, they just call.
Right.
So,
right.
But that's basically what we do.
No, that's good. Yeah, that's good. So thank you, Christian. You've been very generous with your time.
Likewise.
And thank you for coming in and sharing your knowledge, your history, and your.
Well, I don't pretend to know everything. We got lots to learn to do every day.
Everything. So so that's good. So thank you for coming.
Very exciting.
Appreciate it.
Yes, likewise, sir.
Thank you, Christian.
Thank you.
Thanks.